Welcome to Mural Backstage Pass. My name's Mark Tippin. I'm the head of learning experience for Mural. My co-host is Haley Temple, who's a learning experience lead at Mural. And for the next 60 minutes, we're going to take you behind the scenes of a teamwork session with a very special guest. We encourage you to use the chat, like where I just said hello, let us know where you're from, and the QA channels. Chat, feel free to share links. We'll be dropping links in there as well. QA is for questions, so if you have a question for us, be sure to use the QA panel because that's how it'll rise to the surface and we won't miss it. Our goal is to help you gain confidence in using Mural in a wide variety of use cases. So every week it's a little bit different, and we broadcast the work as it happens. It's sometimes lightly scripted, like this one has a little bit of structure, but not too much. And we hope that this will encourage you to use your facilitation superpowers in new ways with your own teams. To help us get the most from today's session, Haley and I will be the meta observers and call out any best practices that we see, some features that you might not be aware of, and best remote collaboration practices. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Haley and introduce us to our wonderful, amazing co-hosts today.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Mark. So today I'm pumped to have Nevada Lane joining us. She is the founder of Lane Change Consulting, and she is a wonderful visual practitioner and facilitator. And yeah, Nevada, how are you today?
I'm great. I'm so excited to be with you. Normally I get to hear your beautiful toned voices on Backstage Pass, and now I'm like in it. It's kind of surreal. Like usually I hear Mark's amazing voice, right? Here I am.
Yes.
Mark's the microphone.
He says it's the microphone. It's not the. I had the same microphone, the same headset, and I don't sound smooth jazz like that. So
you sound great too, Haley.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So today, yeah, it's great. We have planned a little bit for this session, of course, but we do like to keep things loose and flow and have some fun with it. So for those of you in the audience today, we are not going to share the link to this mural. Just to keep things a little bit smoother and just from a herding cats perspective, but we will invite you to put your questions in the Q&A panel and put your comments and any helpful links and stuff in the chat, because this is really meant to be a community space for all of you to share best practices and to learn a little bit more about working visually and working in Mural. So with that, today, here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about how to envision what success looks like for a team, and how do we facilitate that conversation with teams, especially as most people are still working remote right now. And so it's going to be a mix of visual working and talking about high-performing teams. And then success today looks like helping everybody here identify new ways to bring visual work and to bring visual collaboration into setting team goals. So Nevada, did I miss anything that I want to cover?
No.
Okay.
Sounds good.
All right. And Mark, I'll ask you, Elise is asking for our cute little cartoon GIFs here that we—
Great, they're the best. They're
peppered.
We were just talking about that before we started.
They're so delightful. All right, well, if we are ready to rock and roll, I'm going to actually use the content library to do a little warm up that Nevada brainstormed on our prep call. So, and we have Amelia here today with us too. Hey, Amelia.
Hey, Amelia.
Hi.
So here is the warm up for our crew, and let me get the link to you, Amelia, so that you can join us as well. All right. So for those of you in the chat, please use the chat to answer this question. For those of us who are in the mural, we're going to use Mural, of course, to do this. So if you were writing a book about your experience during the pandemic, what would the title be? And feel free to add some images. Feel free to grab a book and type in a title here, change the cover and things like that.
We did this other warm up at a conference this past weekend. It went a little dark in some ways, but you know what?
Right.
You take it wherever you need to go.
Oh, okay. Here we go. Maureen said, how to gain 50 pounds very easily. Lisa said, my life from the waist up. Martina, don't forget to shower. Marnie said, I'm going to copy and paste a bunch of these onto the mural from the chat.
So
That's right.
You guys are so
What's
creative.
that smell?
We have
Oh my God.
Monotony and desperation. Yeah, see, there's
That's right. It's basically just tear the cover off a Jane Austen novel and put that new title on it.
Oh my God.
These are great.
You guys, creative. I love these. Which wine is it today? Word. Yes.
Groundhog Day. Yeah.
15 pounds in 15 weeks. Guys, all right.
Wow. We got some excellent comedic material here. Yeah.
Ooh, I like Sari said how to lock down to uplift. All right, I like that one.
There you go.
Nice. We had how to make lemonade out of lemons. How I became a pro gardener. Ooh, Lisa, gonna have to tell all because I can't really keep succulents alive. Back to brass tacks.
COVID brought my family together.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Guys, you're amazing. You're on mute. I like that one. All right.
Yeah. You're still here. This is the humor I needed this morning. This
yeah, this is so fun. All right. So I'm going to think about my title. These are all so creative. All right.
I feel like I need to add an emoji to my teenagers are fun one.
Yeah. I'm going to add.
or something.
I've been using this Zoom, the everything is fine meme as like a lot of my Zoom backgrounds.
Yes, you use that. It's great.
Oh yeah, I had it on when we were prepping.
And you kind of just like slid it in while we were talking.
And I was like, oh,
and I didn't quite, yeah, it's good.
All right, so we have, what day is it again? Teenagers are fun. Tell us about Teenagers are fun, Frown Face, Nevada.
Well, no, you know, if you have teenagers, you don't need me to explain.
I don't.
If you were a teenager, you probably don't need me to explain. But I have two teenagers in my house.
Two.
There is much eye rolling. There is mostly it's the what's for dinner, and then you say what's for dinner, and then there's the that's actually the worst part of my day is that A, that dinner happens every night, and that B, there's that response.
That's awesome. I mean, as a former teenager, although I feel like I've been 85 for a long time, I totally get that. Okay, here we go. So Mark, WTF just happened. Yes. Zoom fatigue is real. I feel like with a teenager, it's like, well, then you make dinner. Like, if you didn't like what my options are, like, please, you make it. But maybe they would just eat like chips the whole time.
That is, and ice cream. Those two things.
Okay, then that's fair enough. All right. Well, thank you guys so much this is a really fun, and feel free to use any of these exercises in your own sessions. We share the mural with you guys after the session and put it in the recording link so you can use it yourself. All righty. So with that, we are going to, let's talk a little bit more about working visually in Mural. And Nevada, I'd love to share a little bit about how you talked about this combination of Mural with some other tools that you like to use to facilitate. So please say more.
Yeah, so one of the things that I've been sort of thinking about and exploring and talking to other folks who are graphic facilitators in the real world, right, in the analog world, that we do a lot of stuff with hand-drawn graphics, is how do we sort of merge our worlds and integrate that work into Mural. So I'm kind of playing around with what does like a hand-drawn framework or template look like in Mural. And oh yeah, cool. And you have some examples of graphic recording. So there's sort of like, for folks, there's a lot of folks I know that are on the call that are kind of in the visual practitioner world, in the graphic facilitation world. So there's graphic recording, right, where we sort of capture everything as live visual notes. And then there's folks that really work facilitating teams using templates, using graphics to facilitate that dialogue.
And how would you describe graphic recording and facilitating, like, to an alien? If someone just popped on the earth and was like, "What you doing over there?" Like, how would you describe what you're up to there?
Yeah, so look at this beautiful piece that Mark brought in, and that looks like it might be, it's from
Tanya Gadsby.
Tanya Gadsby. Yeah, she's fantastic. She's up in Canada. So think about it, it's like sketchnoting, big. So on big paper, using text and images to capture the content of the meeting in that visual format. So that's graphic recording. And you tend to be that you're not interacting with the group in general, because you're focused on this beautiful graphical output. So that's how I sort of distinguish graphic recording from graphic facilitation, where there's more dialogue with the group, there's more interactivity with the group and the graphic, if that makes sense.
So you're making something like this, but maybe we'll just practice it today, because I know, I just can't imagine. I do graphic recording and some, of course, graphic facilitating, and making something like this while you're facilitating is a challenge. I imagine
totally.
Even you're a pro, and I imagine it's like you're trying to juggle at the same time as you're riding a unicycle. But yeah, so I guess it'd be interesting to see, how do you take what you said was, like, a lot of times you would be standing in the room, you're at a canvas or like at a whiteboard or something in a meeting space. So how do you bring that into a digital space?
Yeah, so I've been playing around with that a little bit. So I just imported this graphic that, so I drew this in Procreate in, a few minutes in Procreate, and then just have now imported it as an image into Mural.
Oh.
And, as you know, Mural has so many amazing templates that you can choose from. For me, I kind of like to create my own templates. I like them to have that hand-drawn look and feel. And I often like them to have a metaphor, sort of a framing metaphor, right? Here's a sort of a pretty simple image of, right, there's a road leading to somewhere. And I think that's always a beautiful frame for conversations. And there's, of course, many ways you can do that, right? A boat sailing over an ocean, a climber climbing a rocky mountain, whatever it is. But these kind of journey metaphors are quite beautiful to sort of create a journey for the conversation. So here's an example, right? And we'll be working with this today, but this becomes kind of the background for the activity in Mural.
That's awesome. So how did you make this one in particular? Like the shadowing and everything like that, and kind of this backsplash is really neat. So yeah, what did you use to make this?
Yeah, so there's, of course, all sorts of amazing drawing applications out there. I'm a fan of Procreate, so I drew this on the iPad, and it's just a couple of layers, right? On the top layer, draw my black outlines for the shapes that I want for that visual template, and then my secret trick is that on the base layer, on the under layer, to do your shadow. So you kind of use that. I used something called the round brush in Procreate to create that kind of transparent shadow effect. But you could do that in Sketchbook or Photoshop or Concepts or whatever other drawing app you're using.
Nice. Yeah, Lisa Rothstein. She'll be on the session on Backstage Pass in a couple weeks. She was saying Procreate's only $10. It's only on iPad, but it's a great, very useful app.
Yeah, incredibly powerful. Mm-hmm.
I was going to show, I can also do this in Mural, not to this effect with the layering and stuff, but I have my hub behind me. I might try and sketch this, something similar.
Oh yeah, great. This will be good to see as an alternative if you don't have the iPad or you're just, not quite ready to try that in that format. You can do it in Mural.
So it's my first time working. Oh, here we go. Yay. Not my first time working in the hub, but I'll try and sketch and see how this comes out.
So I'll talk just for a second about what the device is. So what's happening more and more in collaborative physical office spaces is the overhead projector is getting replaced with touchscreen devices. The prices are coming down. It's more accessible. And the device that Haley's drawing on is a Microsoft Hub 2S, which is a touch surface that also has a stylus. It's running Windows 10, and we have a native version of the Mural app that runs on it. The device itself is meant to be in a shared space, so it's not like something you would sit in front of all day and you keep all your personal files and stuff on it. It actually wipes itself clean every time you log out because someone else will come up and use it. So the nice thing about Mural is you can from any mural that you're looking at on any device, you can drop down a menu and say send to a touch panel, and each hub has its own unique identifier. And in the Mural, when you boot up Mural, it basically says, here's the number you need to punch in. And what Haley did is on her device, she just punched in a number and it sent that Mural to the hub and it showed up, and then she can just start working. So it's kind of the equivalent of doing work on your laptop and then you plug into the overhead projector and everyone can see it. You're just punching in a number and then it goes up on the device in the background.
That's pretty cool. Haley, is it possible in that to strengthen that line and darken that line, or is there only kind of only one option for line thickness?
So there are 3 options for line thickness. I'm actually on the most thick right now. But yeah, so I would, and this is something I've given feedback to our team about, is being able to work kind of like how the Procreate, being able to strengthen that line here and add like the shadows and stuff like that. But a lot of times I'll also do, so you can add lines.
Yeah, part of it is also the scale. So sometimes, if you zoom in quite a bit, the lines actually, you can have the appearance thicker, but when you scale it up, the lines don't necessarily scale the thickness. So, but you could draw something in Mural, you could screen capture it and paste it in. But these are all workarounds. We want, that's why we're talking to you, Nevada, is like, what's the thing where does a tool need to go to really support what's the job to be done when you're in these sessions,
Yeah. I mean, it's cool. There's something about that strong line that creates that kind of like a stronger visual framework to kind of hold that conversation, right? But it's cool to know you can just draw, and that hub tool is the hub tool is just cool.
Yeah. Say that 10 times fast.
Yeah. This, for folks that are interested, the graphic that I drew was like a 16:9 ratio. So it was 1980 by 1020 at 200 DPI. And I just exported it as a PNG image. And then when I plopped it in, it was kind of small, but I scaled it pretty big so that it would fit nicely with a Post-it. And the resolution's pretty good. It doesn't like pixelate or anything, right? So if I double click and add a Post-it, you kind of see it's about the right size for working in that. In that template. So that's just something that I've been playing around with, right? But it doesn't pixelate at all. I mean, it's pretty clean, and it doesn't seem to affect latency at all.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the things that that I think we learned along the way by trial and error is basically when you're presenting or sharing a screen, or even if people are in Mural, we're still constrained by this 16:9 aspect ratio, right? It's still that's pretty much the format if someone's going to be looking and putting something in the center. It's compelling sometimes to work vertically if you're designing a poster that could hang on a wall, and maybe there's a way where you could have a journey that runs, but any moment where you need to pause and have that conversation, it's pretty much that widescreen aspect ratios. What makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm just having fun sketching over here. It follows pretty well, but okay, I digress. So, and it's interesting. So there's a little bit more, Nevada, anything else like you would advise for somebody who is doing recording and sketching and then bringing it in? You said part of it is thinking about how you might, space for people to collaborate as well. I mean, for me, it was clear that there's something to be added here. But how do you think about space and how much space to make for people to add content when you're bringing it into a mural?
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of like the broader question there is, right, how do you create visual templates for folks in general, analog or offline, right? I tend to think you want to have like no more than 3 questions essentially that you're going to be asking folks. So 3 kind of workspaces, right? So here you can kind of get a sense that there's 3, right? There's something up here, which is the end state. We'll be talking about kind of a vision of team performance. You kind of might suspect that down the boxes are kind of a current state, and then there's kind of the journey to the vision, right? So there's sort of 3 buckets, 3 questions. I don't tend to do any more than that in a single template because it tends to get too crowded for folks, right? You want to leave as much white space as possible. Like the drawing is just there to create a frame, not to be fancy, right? So I often say like drawings don't have to be fancy to be effective. They're just sort of creating that visual metaphor, that visual kind of container to hold the conversation. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. I think it's just about, to your point, making space for people, and it is clear and concise, but you don't want to overwhelm the participants in a way with too many spaces to add things in.
Not too many spaces, and then not too much of your own drawing, right? Because, right, if content is really king, as we think about the meeting, right, it's not about my fancy drawing. It's about pulling the wisdom from the group and collecting that, and then creating a record that's going to be effective for them.
Right.
So spaciousness is really key there.
And being able to make, I mean, the nice thing is like I can expand this and make infinite space too. So one makes it even bigger for a group.
Let's try this out, because I think what's fun too in Mural, and I just added like a little, let me move this.
Yeah. No, I'll
header. So normally, like if I'm doing graphics in a room, I mean, if I'm doing visual templates in a room, I would, add the headers in there so that people had a sense of kind of what happens in each section of the agenda. But here I was kind of just playing around with just putting the image in Mural and then thinking about adding the titles for the different sections, just as little title blocks. So that's what I'm doing now.
Yeah, that sounds good.
And there's sort of this, Mural is so awesome with all the post-its, but I thought we could play today a little bit with adding images. So I might ask you guys to, on this top portion of the template, to think about a team that you have been on, and where there really was that sense of high performance, of 1 + 1 equaling 5, of kind of a synergy, of a flow. And to find a couple of images from the image search that reflects the feeling of being on that team, images that evoke that sense of being on that high performing team, and then to drag and drop them over in this top portion of the visual template over here.
Okay, so let me see.
Very evocative.
That's right.
Very evocative.
The old Vulcan mind meld, yeah.
So in the analog world, what I would usually do is have a bunch of, visual explorer cards, a bunch of image cards, or collage, right? And the team can sort through images that way. This way, they have to actually put in a term, which is a little bit different, right, to find the images. But there's something about it. What I'm noticing when I was playing around with this is, to put you do the image, you put some words in the image search, but then kind of just looking from all the images that come up, which ones evoke that emotion or that sense or that experience that you want to convey. So it's a little bit of a different kind of thing, that the mind body thing that the participant has to go through, if you know what I mean.
That's right. We also have an integration with the Noun project. And sometimes when I can't get I'm looking for an image, that's my job to be done, is find the right image, but I'm not able to access the right search term to get to the image I want. Sometimes I'll go into the Noun project, and that you could punch a word into that, like frustration, and you'll get such a rich, diverse way of encapsulating and distilling frustration into an icon that can then give you a way. Like there was one I was trying to find, like a good photo for kindness, and through the Noun project, there was someone holding an umbrella over another icon. And I went, that was the image. So then I could put that as search terms into the image. And then I got this really delightful photo of an old man standing in the rain holding an umbrella over his wife, you know, at a bus stop or something. And it was like, and it was that the image was the goal, but I couldn't get to it directly. So I used the tool to get access to the language to find the image.
That's super interesting because that's a little bit what graphic recorders do in real time, right? Is to think about like, there's this big concept, there's something that I want to convey, and then your brain has to sort of make a bunch of leaps to get to the thing that's actually drawable.
Yes.
Right. So someone says the word insurance, right? Well, how do you draw insurance? It's not just money, doesn't really convey it, right? But you can also make those same dots and get to the term umbrella, right? Like protection, you know what I mean? So yeah, interesting.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. It's like a visual, you build up and a lot of part of prepping that is a visual, like building your visual vocabulary for that topic and thinking about preparing that. So this is really cool. All right. So let's see what we found.
Yeah, cool. Okay.
So Mark, tell us a little about Spock.
It looks a little foreboding, but the idea there is that when you're in flow and you're really well aligned, you have the right amount of communication so that the behavior is just totally in concert with the other people on your team, and there's the most efficient transfer of effort into result. No friction, no second guessing, no worry. So that was the image. It's maybe not the best example because Dr. McCoy doesn't look like he has too much to say in the matter and what's going on right now. But that's not this part of the sentiment I wanted to.
Well, and what's so great about that is of what you just did, right, is to sort of give us a window into your brain by telling us the story, right? So, and the beauty of working with teams, right, is seeing how different brains work and the meaning making that different brains make out of the same image or an image. So like for this exercise, the storytelling piece is actually more important, right, than just finding the images and plopping them on the graphic, as you guys all know. So like what Haley's doing in terms of capturing the actual, like the words from the story are really important here, right? So especially in terms of the output for a team for after the fact, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. Sorry, I'm co-driving the chat here as well. What else do we have? So
I get curious about this little figure with the windows and the, like, who did that one with the...
I added that one. I searched kindness, and that was one that came up. That was really fascinating. Honestly, don't know how it envisions a high-performing team. I was just like, oh, this looks fascinating. My other ones. Oh, go ahead, Mark.
I took it as, I assumed it was intentional, and I think about any skill that I have was a result of other people that shared talent or gift or knowledge or mentorship or something with me along the way. So for me, it was spot on because I thought, wow, my ability, any management skill I have to manage a team came from other managers that were good role models and generous and exhibited the behaviors that I felt that worked with me and I saw got results in these amazing teams. So I was like, wow, that was amazing.
Yes, that's what I meant because I'm a genius. And
that's exactly what I meant.
I was just awesome. Quizzing you and you passed.
That's right. Okay.
What was so cool about what just happened there, right, is like the collective meaning making, or like you just like made Haley right. You know what I mean? Like whatever she created, you just made her right, which was awesome.
That's really cool.
That's kind of the essence of yes and, right?
Yes,
and
exactly.
Sparking and
Well, there's something that makes me think like pretty much any image you put up here, people could make meaning out of and find a story that relates to high performing teams, right? That's sort of the magic of what you guys just did.
Absolutely. Well, and it shows, I think, in terms of just our team too, there's this notion of the images I was trying to find something. I didn't quite find what I was looking for, but like this notion of a flow state of like when you're creating or when you're even when you're running, you hit this point of like things just flow very naturally, and I had like this you finish each other's sentences kind of thing, because it is just kind of snarky, but you there's that trust and that like the baton to the handoff, where you get to this point with the team where you've built that trust and you've built that understanding, and you both have awareness, or your team has awareness of how you work together and where the puzzle pieces fit, so that everyone owns what they do and then can drive forward successfully together.
Mm. Yeah, in some of the way that you guys are talking about it, the word that comes to me is ease, right? It's sort of an ease in the working relationship, the handoff, the finishing of sentences, the mind meld. Yeah, great. So cool. Is that kind of enough for that section, just to kind of give a flavor of like what would happen up there at the top of the template?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and the audience too, like any questions you have for Nevada or us about how we're doing things, put them in the chat. We're going to be answering as we go.
And the thing I also like is sometimes people think, well, I can't draw, so I can't participate, and yet really the image search and the sketching gives a context for people to participate, but the participation can take all these different non-hand drawn from myself ways, but then it's the communication that happens around them. So I think that's another way where this environment really balances. It's inclusive, because you can get access to something even if you can't draw it yourself. You can still get access to something that helps start a conversation and move it along.
Yeah, I think there's some debate in the world of graphic facilitation about what we call the thing that we do, and some people, including myself, have switched to using the term visual facilitation, because part of it is that it's not always graphical. What we're doing is that, right, and not that everybody has to draw to participate, right, but you're using visuals to convey, to think, to learn, to kind of collaborate. Okay, so how about if we come down to kind of the lower portion of this template where the boxes are?
I'm going to ask you guys to follow me as well.
Great.
There you go.
Following Haley. And on the left side in this box, we could potentially put some Post-its about what we're seeing now in the team in terms of behaviors that are supporting our vision of team performance. So like, what are some of the things that we see around us happening on their team that are in alignment with our vision of team performance?
And I was in Hawaii just for a second there answering something in the chat. Are we working on the left-hand side or the right-hand side?
Left-hand side. And it's a great, of course you would be a little bit confused because there's no titles on here. So, right, that would be something to add. If we put a little, I will add that. No wonder. I've been using that I'm in Hawaii thing too, by the way.
That's great. We're doing some work with JPL, Jet Propulsion Laboratories, and they've modified Elmo and I'm in Hawaii into their own kind of geeky Mars rover parlance, which is hilarious. So when the rover blips off, that's I was in Hawaii, so they have it was like rover reset or something, and then
oh nice,
and then I was in Mars, or I was their favorite plateau crater on Mars is where they were. So it's neat to see companies inculcate these little rituals into their own kind of geeky behavior.
That's awesome. That's the beauty of it, like remixing. All right, so team behaviors in alignment with our vision. If we're looking at it from here, what do we do? And I'll invite Amelia is in here too to think about this. She's having lunch at the same time, which is okay, but
for time zone.
Yeah. Yes.
Backstage Pass is right in the middle of lunch. No worries.
We appreciate you being here.
I'm here. Just if you need anything, let me know. I've been answering some questions in the chat too.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
For the Q&A pane, actually.
And Nevada, while we're doing this, we did have a question in the Q&A panel about any books or other resources that you recommend for somebody who's getting into the world of working visually or visual or graphic recording or visual recording? That question came from,
there's so many
it's
wonderful.
ES, oh God, I'm not going to pronounce this properly, Swiatek. I apologize if I mispronounced that. So, but Nevada, do share.
So many wonderful resources. And I know that folks like Lisa Nelson and Dana Wasson are on the call too, and can also add some resources in the chat, because I'll probably forget a bunch of them. But in terms of like graphic recording, Brandy Agerbeck has a book called The Graphic Facilitators Guide.
It's an awesome one.
In terms of like capturing stuff in live in front of a room in an analog way, that is a wonderful, wonderful book to get started. And then, yeah, Lisa's talking about, it's actually David Sibbett with 2 B's, but all of his books from the Grove Consultants are excellent. He's got visual meetings, visual leaders, visual consulting. Oh, and the book that I'm in too, The World of Visual Facilitation.
That's
Thank
right.
you.
You bet. Gonna do a little plug for you here. This is fantastic. It's about 50 pounds, but it's about 2 tons worth of information.
Yeah. I do. If you have a LinkedIn Learning account, I actually have a course on there around graphic facilitation, like the basics of graphic facilitation. So if you have it's free to watch if you have a membership. But yeah, tons of wonderful books. And then Ben Crothers has a book called Business Drawing, which is just about like being able to draw sort of efficiently. Yeah.
Nice.
I hope that gets them started. Okay, cool. So some behaviors. Oh, and I like that you added like an image in there too. So with the team, right, we would go through a bunch of things that that kind of are in place, right? And these essentially become like the strengths that we want to continue to grow, right? What we want to make sure we do more of these. We want to grow on them. They're kind of our super sauce. And you can see my line right above there. That's kind of a little funky because I made a mistake. So it's okay to make little errors in your templates too.
It's a human touch.
Human touch. Yeah.
Wabi sabi, is that the term?
What is wabi? What is that wabi sabi?
It's the perfect imperfect, like a vase that's slightly cracked. It's, you know, the lovely Japanese culture has these wonderful words for these wonderful insights, you know. And wabi sabi is just that, admiring the thing that is imperfect. It's perfect in its imperfectness. That's my layman interpretation of it.
Owning it. Cool. Self-awareness. Tell me, for if you put that on, if that was, tell me.
Yeah, that was me.
Like what does the behavior of self-awareness look like?
Yeah. And by the way, you can see who added what. If you right click on something, anything on the mural.
Oh yeah.
Show info. You can
that's such a
see
good
who did it. But yeah, so self-awareness, how do we show that? A behavior that shows self-awareness. I think that I think debriefs, being able to debrief an experience and make time and space for that is important to our team. And so highlighting what we did well, but also highlighting what didn't go well. And I think what I think Mark added here, owning that when things go well or don't go well, is an important behavior that we exhibit as a team. And yeah,
I think also, you know, like the little tent signs I've had on my desk, like wait, why am I talking? Right? There's a certain thing to prompt yourself to be aware. You're not the only voice in the conversation, and making space for others, and always staying, you know, keeping the focus on the topic and not making it personal. So almost like being self-aware by not turning it into something that is a personal attack or attack on the part. It's always in service of the idea.
Yeah, there's something around your intentionality there as a team that I'm hearing too, about the intention of care or something like that.
Yeah, we're very much like, we're like, how are you? I mean, and very good about checking in with one another. And I always feel as though everybody on our team is truly listening to one another. It doesn't feel like you're just listening and being polite, and then you want to say what you want to say. It's always a very caring
That's right.
and genuine.
That's right. I had a facilitator share their definition of listening that they found really powerful, and it was willingness to have your mind changed, right? So listening is really, I mean, when you really get to the point of listening, it's not waiting for the other person's lips to stop moving so you can talk. It really is that from nothing, being really open and being able to hold that concept and evaluate it against your own, and be generous with that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, generous is such a nice word, because that sounds like it's a flavor or that's on your team, is a kind of a flavor of generosity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say so. If anything, we really struggle with saying no.
Yeah.
And we use we often when we find the right metaphor, then we click. Like our metaphor when things were going very crazy over the last couple of months is the if you're a parent on an airline flight and the oxygen mask drop, all of your instincts are, I need to help my child, but you have to put it on yourself first before you can help, and that was a useful metaphor for us because we wanted to say yes to everyone that was panicking and suddenly remote and trying to figure stuff out. And we realized we actually need to figure out how to do this and how to scale and how to not just get completely consumed in the fire, and how to actually set stuff up so that we could at scale kind of help people, but that went against our intention because we want to say yes, and we tend to be very generous and sure, let's see how we can do that, like optimistic possibility. Those are all wonderful traits, but when you have limited resources, that can also can make everyone dislike you because you're not delivering to anyone on any on any level, and then you're just a well-meaning schmuck. You're not.
Yeah, you don't want to be the well-meaning schmuck.
It's our new team title.
Well-meaning schmucks.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Well, it strikes me that it's so cool that you said like the generosity and the giving and the listening, right? The shadow side of that is not having boundaries where you give too much that you're burnt out and overextending, right? So any of these things, if over practiced, become weaknesses, right? Okay, so if we were going to, just in the interest of time, I love that you did a sketch of well-meaning schmucks. What are those little things flying down there?
That was my attempt at the oxygen mask, but
Totally.
I realized one looks like a golden snitch.
Totally. Totally, those are oxygen. I get it. Okay. So on the other side, we might go over and add some team behaviors that we observe, right? Observing with as less judgment as possible, almost like you're a reporter looking at the team, right? Some behaviors that might not be in alignment with high performance. So you guys already mentioned one, right? Maybe I don't know how exactly you want to phrase it, but that sort of over generosity could be one.
Sure.
I'm going to sketch again on this one.
Oh yeah, thanks for that additional clarification on the thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, great. That's really common right now, Mark. I'm working with a lot of teams, and it's the plus is, we're committed to each other, we're all in, we're so supportive, and then the more challenging behavior is the not taking care of ourselves.
Exactly. There's it was a John Fitch at Voltage Control. Had a great great book, and he did a good talk. We all have a work ethic, right? That's very common for us to embrace, and a shared calendar and Zoom are like matches and gasoline, right? It's you can book someone from 7 in the morning to 9 at night, and every half hour is booked, and there's no time in between, right? So he has this whole notion of you have a work ethic, but you need a rest ethic, and I think we forget that our good ideas, our inspirations, often come when we're in flow doing something else. Getting into your hobbies can actually make you a much better performer in work because you're going for a walk, doing physical when you've been mental, find its balance in all things. So.
Yeah, when that's so true from, what was that book, Jonah, what's his last name, Lair, who wrote the book called Insights, talking about how, right, the insights we often have those in like when we're in the shower, when we're running, right? Because we're turning off the kind of egoic mind and letting the subconscious kind of process, and then like allowing space for that to emerge and to hear the kind of the deeper wisdom that's there.
Absolutely.
I love you sketching in there, Haley. This is really cool.
This is fun. It's very relaxing. I appreciate the space to do it. So
yeah, it's funny that it almost feels like the frame, like that you're wanting to draw like in the frame.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, you've made this like, I imagine like a flip chart paper in a way in a physical office or a meeting room, and now you've given me a constrain the space to do it, and we can make it bigger or smaller if we need to.
That's the power that I see in visual templates, both in the analog world, that is interesting to see play out here, is that people want to fill in white space, right? It's like, and they feel very accomplished if you start off with a big template and you're like, we're going to do this and then this and then this.
Mm-hmm.
They know, and that's going to happen in 2.5 hours, and then they can see where we are because they're visually tracking, and it's very satisfying, and the brain really likes that certainty, right? To feel like, okay, I know what we're doing, and someone's going to take me through this thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's actually very relaxing that I can let go and then have my contributions, right?
Mm-hmm. All right.
Okay, cool. What's the little, fire? Yeah, is that like firefighting kind of thing?
Yeah, it's kind of like, so I guess my picture was like, we run in parallel a lot, Mark and I, and which is wonderful. Like, we have a lot of trust in one another and our abilities, and like that's the self-awareness gives that capability. But I also think that a lot of times we forget to check in, or we feel like we don't have time to check in. And then I think, to your point, Mark, about the reactionary, like we're just running towards fires and not taking a step back and being like, should we fight that fire? Maybe it's not the biggest one, or we shouldn't, it's just not the right one to put out.
Yeah. Or I get suddenly I'll want to put too much process into something that really is just a one-off, and then the things that we do all the time, we just keep banging our shins into that coffee table instead of moving it. We just like, maybe we should have some process here to make sure we never repeat that again. But knowing when, and and it would be really interesting to actually kind of mind map these things and understand, are there some that are more root causes that cause these things that have more surface area, right? There are more things that are eating up more of our time, but if you really pulled it back together, it'd be taking 5 minutes at the beginning of your day and mapping out like 3 things you're going to accomplish no matter what would actually make a monumental shift at the end of the day. Could 5 minutes impact a week, as opposed to wanting to over process or put a Jira thing or an Asana workflow together for something that really isn't used.
Yeah, absolutely. This is really helpful to walk through this, Nevada. Thank you for giving us the opportunity.
We invite you on for free team therapy. Thank you.
Yeah, so much. I'm curious.
I just hear that so much, which is so common, is that tension between action and process. Like, do we spend our time building a foundation, a process foundation, or do we like do the thing, right? It's just such a common, it's just such a common thing for teams to struggle with, and always finding a balance.
Mm-hmm. Now I scaled out a little bit because I wanted to get the full picture, and also being mindful of, we have about 10 minutes left together. So, Nevada, where do we go next from here? Like, how do you usually facilitate once you've unpacked this with the team?
Yeah. So, this is something that I've never done before, but I really want you guys to experiment because I thought this would be fun. So normally, right, we look at the strengths and the behaviors that are in alignment and not in alignment, and then we do a lot of talking around that. And we might do some voting, or root cause analysis, like Mark was suggesting. But then at some point we come to this, okay, in terms of thinking about some actions that we want to take as a team, what are some of those actions? And I thought a fun way to do that today would be to ask you guys to think about a particular an action that you think that you would like to take as a team to move towards your vision of high performance. But instead of writing a post-it about it, tell us a little story, a visual story about it using icons.
Okay. All right. So if I replay that, an action we can take as a team to get towards our vision and do it with icons.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And where in the space?
Yeah, somewhere on this road, right? Because it's a little bit of a journey. So somewhere in there. And I will add the kind of title to that section.
Okay.
Okay. So Haley, what would you like when you look out at that horizon? What are some things, or one thing in particular that really is an outcome that you think would be worth focusing on? Yeah, and I guess
I'm just scanning again.
Yeah, I'm thinking, like, is it something where we already have some chops, but we want to double down and improve, or is it something where it's something that we admire that we don't possess?
I feel like it's something we're in the process of making, but I want to get from this point of being reactionary and just saying the yes and whatever you need to being able to pause and come together as a team and decide what we're going to do, and being it's funny, like intentionality is, I think our team is intentional inward but not outward. So how do we take our intentionality and project that outward as a team?
I love those two words. So I'm just going to capture like the notion of, that icon does not like to be drawn here. Oh, are these showing up as black boxes for you?
They are.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Let me see. Some of the icons have been a little bit weird lately.
Let's see. So let's try this one. No.
Ah.
How about there we go. I'll just do outward. Not that that's the best one, but in an intention. So interesting. So with intention, there's this, there's this kind of notion about, maybe mentally projecting, it's people, the sports athletes, people that actually, are thinking through visualizing things before we actually are doing it. But I think maybe there's something we can visualize around a meditation about, because I'm not even present to like being at this outward intention. And there's something there that is on one hand kind of a no duh, and the other type like deeply insightful and
like, how do we take the yeses? We need like a toolkit or steps. And we kind of talked through this before, but like, how do we? I don't know if it's getting better at saying no or getting better at like pausing and taking a step back together as a team, and not in a way, because Mark and I, since we love to say we like helping others, it's hard to say no to people. So, like making a script in a way for ourselves, or like a plan when someone asks us for something, like, okay, what do we do with that? And what's like a common script we could follow to file our requests or to sync on them together or something like that.
And I think as you were sharing, it occurred to me there's also an aspect of this, which is if we're aligned, if we invest a little bit in getting the people who are requesting things of us to more understand and become aligned and help us with the vision that we need to achieve for the company, the request, they actually have their own self-awareness about, is this a request that's actually appropriate? Does it align with, now that I know what they're trying to do is, take that hill or plant that garden or whatever the metaphor is. It's like, well, me just asking them to go put out this fire is not helping with this thing that the company needs to happen right now, or that we all collectively need. So maybe there's a, I was doing a quick, root cause analysis things like, well, actually, how could we prevent the challenges from flooding us? And that becomes with people actually understanding we're not the fire department. We are this other thing. But if they don't know, then what they assume is they know how to facilitate, they know these things, therefore they're the ones we should be tapping for all of these type of questions, which are actually, we're not the best source for.
Yeah. Maureen said identifying our boundaries as a team or individually so we know what to say no to. So the icon could be like a box, even just putting a box around ourselves in a way. Jay said, like, how might we throw away our processes so we can better understand the actions that are most beneficial? And I think that also comes back to knowing our vision, our story. And it's like, if we're solid in that and we can effectively communicate that, to your point, Mark, people will proactively know when to ask us for something or to make that request. And we can better be equipped to say, like, that doesn't make sense, and why.
Yeah. I like the box seems really confining, just like, because that's like, I always go to like, think outside the box, right?
Yeah,
but maybe something where there's a clear perimeter and there are clear ways in and out. And, there's like a castle, there's an obvious thing. If the portcullis is down and the drawbridge is up, it's like, they're not really, there's an outward sign that now is not the time to go ask for something. Whereas if it's, May Day and a big fete and there's all sorts of flags, and so, it's very obvious that, yes, come in and these are the ways in and out. But there are these defenses, and boundaries was my word for 2020. That was my kind of my word of the year, and I've been struggling with it now for 7 months. So
there's something you guys are touching on here, right? There's sort of boundaries can feel like we're saying no.
Right.
And then the other side of that is a positive, which is being really clear on whether you call it your why, your stake, your reason for existing, what's important to you. Do you feel the difference?
Yes.
Right? If you're really, really clear on like what you're about and what you care about and what you're trying to achieve, then it's less about sort of saying no. And it's like, okay, what's the thing that's really what are we saying yes to that's going to get that? You know what I mean?
Yes.
So just noticing there's you'd probably get similar answers, but one has a different energy to it than another.
It does. It definitely does. Thank you so much. This has been really helpful, like, from our team perspective, to talk this out.
Yeah, I loved how you guys really went with it. We thought it was going to be more like fictitious team, right?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Let's do the work in the meeting.
Yeah. And also, I think, Nevada, thank you for sharing this visual framework with us too, and sharing more about your approach to bringing your work from Procreate into Mural. It was really helpful, I think, illuminated for a lot of us, and for me for sure, how to work visually in Mural and incorporate different types of visuals in this space. So really appreciate you being here. Appreciate you sharing some of your wisdom with us. And yeah, we'll be here. We'll share this mural, this recording, and be here next week with a new topic. Appreciate all of you guys being here today. Be healthy, be safe, and have a lovely weekend.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, everybody.
All right, take care. Thanks again, Nevada.